Hey everyone, Elaine Beck here, and this is It's Not About Us, our show on CPAC Now that we are so excited about having. And, you know, we are living in a wonderful time right now. I know a lot of people see all the evil out there. We all do. But there's so much good going on. And this wonderful woman, who is my guest today, Mary Miller, is playing an integral part. Isn't it amazing, Mary, that you came in as a new freshman and you were given the opportunity to make history that hadn't been made in ever, really. I just think it's amazing. And I'm so proud of you and all of the 20 people that stood together. So, Mary, tell us, what did that feel like?
Well, thank you, Elaine, for having me. It's just been great to work with you, and I appreciate your support. And in light of the interesting times we live in, I do tell my children regularly, the darker it gets, the brighter we can shine.
Amen.
And so that's what you and I are doing out here.
Right.
Also wearing our little sparkles and to remind us. So it was not discouraging at all.
Yay.
I was razzed up. I wasn't tired. I might look tired, but I didn't feel tired. I felt like we were gaining things for the American people. For me, it was not about Never McCarthy. It was about the rules and about getting rules in place that were going to make us function better as a conference. And especially after we were abused by the Senate and handed that $1.7 trillion omnibus, which 19 Senate Republicans voted for, much to the dismay of, I know, my constituents and supporters, very upset over that.
Absolutely. But how exciting to, you know, you worked hard.
Yes.
You won the battle of getting voted in. And I know that takes a lot from you, your family, and stuff. That takes a lot of courage to do that. And then to walk in and make such a courageous move as you did as a freshman. I am just, I'm telling all 20 of you personally how proud I am of each of you.
Thank you,
that
Elaine.
You stood for what God would have you do. And for too long, we've gone along like little fish going upstream, and yet we weren't going anywhere. We were going backwards. And so now for you to stand together, and I love it too, don't you? That, you know, people are forever saying, well, there's just, what can I say? It's just little me. And what difference can, there's only 20 of us out of all of, how can we make a difference? You proved it. You proved it. You stood together. You stood for what was right. I just think that's amazing.
Well, thank you. So just so that our listeners know, the 19 to 20 of us would spend a lot of hours here at CPI around a table, hashing it out. We started with prayer. We ended with prayer. Sometimes we had to interrupt with prayer. But it was never a hateful dialogue. It wasn't directed toward a human. It was just focused on making us function better. And as we know, politics is all a numbers game. And we wanted, a big red wave. We didn't get it, but we did get a unique opportunity, and we took it. And I'm very proud to be able to have been part of the 20.
Well, Mary, I mean, you've got tears in my eyes when you share with me that you all came together and you decided what you needed to do, and you did it in love and with God at your side, praying and lifting it to Him, handing it to Him first. Does that not tell all of you out there in our little CPAC world how wonderful it is when we can do that? And, when God asked me, what's it been, 4.5 years ago, to bring the Christians together, I had no idea that we'd be living in a time again such as this, where these opportunities would happen and that I would have the opportunity to share it with so many people. And I just feel so blessed. that, you know, with all the evil, look at all the good that can happen now. And I love the idea of you've set a precedence. And this is what I'm saying on each of these shows, because I want people to understand that this is not a one-shot deal, is it?
No.
This is, if we get together and then we stand together and we do it with God first and in his presence, that he does honor it. What a wonderful message, especially for the young people. What do you think?
Well, I appreciate your perspective. I'm 100% on board. I agree the same thing. And I recently was reading in Matthew, I believe he was called the unfaithful servant. And I reminded my kids, you know, he wasn't a murderer and he wasn't a thief. He was a do-nothing. And God didn't come down from heaven, you know, and allow his son to die on the cross, to suffer, die for us to be saved, to do nothing.
Right.
And he expects us to carry the good news of the gospel so that other people can have restored life like we've had the privilege of experiencing. And then our mission is to overcome evil with good in whatever realm we're in.
Right.
And I think it needs to start in our own lives first and then work out from that. And here we are in Washington, D.C. And I just want to encourage the listeners, too, that I started my day today at 7 a.m. with other congressmen and women in prayer for our country.
Yes.
And it was a real time of humility and sharing the word and encouraging each other. And there are quite a few of us out here. And now we are united as a conference to go after Biden's agenda. It is evil. The biggest threat to the world is if our country goes down. We have got to secure the border. I think it's encouraging. The first bills that we went on record with is to deal with the IRS agents, to repeal those, and then to stop the practice of infanticide.
Yes.
And which every Republican voted to, preserve a baby once it's born alive, and every Democrat voted to let that baby die mercilessly, except one. And I am expecting the Democrat Party to go after him. But we're united to go after Biden's agenda. We've got to secure the border. I'm on the education committee. I have 7 children. We're expecting our 20th grandchild. Number one, I want school choice because parents know what's best for their children. Until we have competition, I don't think schools are going to be forced to be better.
That's right.
And to recognize and acknowledge that they are not sitting in an ivory tower untouchable. They are accountable to the taxpayers and to the parents. We're going to have school choice for that. But I want our public schools to be the best possible ever. And we have got to have oversight over the education department, Biden's education department. I'm thrilled that Dr. Fox is going to be chairing that. She will work relentlessly, as has been her habit in the past, in conducting oversight and using her position for good.
Mary, one of my favorite things about you, ever since the first time I met you, is that your passion matches my passion.
Oh, that's great.
We both see it in the light of being the light for Christ first, right? And overcoming the darkness. And we care enough to pay attention to every finite detail. And, just putting the educational system on notice that you're there to educate my children, not to run their lives, not to teach them everything that is my right, to make decisions for my children in every way, not just mentally, but physically. You cannot take those rights from me. That's so exciting.
Well, it's common sense, and the American people want their children to be smart. They don't want them indoctrinated into this radical trans agenda, encouraging them to mutilate their bodies. And obviously, sadly, there have always been people that have struggled with like dysphoria, and we want them to get the help that they need. But what do we see now is like the masses of children claiming to have this issue and want to change their gender. Well, they're being coached into this.
Right, exactly.
And, I think too that there's, they've created this atmosphere of victimhood with the kids. And it's like, well, what's your victimhood? Is it your skin color? Or is it, whatever they're coming up with? Well, now they have another one for the kids. It's, well, I was born in the wrong body. And by the way, at one of the hearings, I did ask the education secretary if they were using tax dollars to transgender minor children, and he wanted to skirt around the answer, but we did finally get a written answer from him, and yes, they are using tax dollars for
So
that.
see, that's illegal.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
That
illegal.
and the fact that they're ruining girls' athletic opportunities.
Amen.
Title IX was implemented to give girls and women opportunities. And this is just outrageous that we're letting men compete against them. They're erasing women. And then to think that they're going to let boys or, in some cases,
Right.
men with all their male parts in our girls' safe spaces.
Right.
And so, this is easy for me.
Right.
And number one, because, we're on God's side on this issue. We're on the American people's side. Parents
Amen.
don't want this. And so I have a business degree, but also education. I spent a little time in public school and then in private education. I actually did homeschool. We called them co-op groups.
Right,
They started
right.
calling them pod groups. But I can tell you one thing from educating children, there's not enough time in the day to get to all the things you want to teach them in light of the core subjects.
Right.
So there's two problems with this is damaging to our children, this woke agenda.
Right.
But the other thing is when your plate is full in light of, your schedule is already full of what they need for reading, writing, and arithmetic, and you're going to decide to discuss gay sex with a second grader, you're just taking time out of a core subject. And it's just maddening to me.
And,
Don't even
the
get
other
me
thing that
started.
really bothers me about it, and then we'll move on from this subject, but the other thing that bothers me about it is the sheer fact that they're teaching these kids to dislike their country
Yeah.
and to
Right.
dislike their parents and to second question and guess their
Right.
parents. That is about as evil as it can get.
Absolutely.
So now that they think they can steal their minds, and then you won't have control and they won't care about their country. That is evil. Pure
this
evil.
is a Marxist agenda, is to break down the, traditional home, the family.
Right.
And put the state in its place, just like they want to disregard God and make the God of the Marxist, government is themselves.
Right.
And so I whatever opportunity I can get to champion parental rights and good core education for our children, I will fight for those opportunities.
Well, I hope you start with Arizona because we did stop her, but
Yeah.
Katie Hobbs tried to take away what our previous governor did and change it from being a
school choice.
school choice back to the other. And fortunately, our legislature is Republican enough
Yeah.
that they said no. Or she would have changed it. The very first thing
Right.
she wanted to do in our state was take all of those rights for parents away from them. And thank you, Jesus, for putting the right people in to stop them and that's what it's going to take. It's that, again, standing together, and not being afraid to go into the battle and being courageous like all of you were.
Well, I feel like President Trump was such a champion for school choice.
Oh,
when he
amen.
had the opportunity, he was so brave coming out against these powerful teacher unions. And I've said for years, the most racist thing that's happening in our country is forcing these kids in inner city schools that have been failing for decades
Right.
to force them to stay in that. And then to reverse that, I mean, we should be like calling people out by name.
Amen.
Whoever is for this, because this is definitely child abuse. And remember that old commercial, Oh, it was Mind is a Terrible Thing to Waste, or what was that? It was a college ad back in the 60s or 70s.
Right,
both,
right.
It was a long time ago. But anyway, it's true. A mind and a life is a terrible thing to waste.
Amen.
And our children have this one opportunity to be educated, but they're disadvantaged for life when they don't get a good education.
That's right.
So in Illinois, there's districts where there's demographics of groups of students that have like a less than 10% reading on grade level,
Right.
but yet the teachers' performance records are at 100%. So
That's
anyway,
amazing.
we need an overhaul of the education system.
This is true.
Practical, common sense stuff. Involve the parents. Number one, listen to the parents. Parents are always the last to know. And I've always said, any subject that's not a core subject,
Right.
they always have it like an opt-out, but it should be an opt-in. That way you're notifying the parents,
Right.
look, we're going to talk about gay sex to your second grader. Do you want him in, or would you like him to read a book and, wherever? And then let the parents choose. That'll
Well,
fix that,
I
that
don't think
agenda.
they should be allowed to teach it at all in school. I don't think that's their place. We all survived,
Yeah.
did we not, without that education? We all had a wonderful country
Yeah.
that we were taught to respect. We all said the Pledge of Allegiance. We all had a flag in every classroom. We were all taught what a wonderful country we lived in. And did we say we were perfect? No. Did we say that there were things that we could have done differently or bad choices were made by individuals? Absolutely. That will always be the case. None of us are perfect. None of us can go without sinning. But that's why we have to have people in place that can make the changes when those things happen to bring us back right, which is what we're trying to do now.
Right. Well, acknowledging when there is a fault or a weakness, and then
Right.
working and coming up with solutions, having civil discourse to make things better. But back to the schools, I wholly support local control of schools, and let the schools reflect the values of the community where they are. Some are
Right.
going to be more liberal or more conservative, but I oppose this one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter agenda that's coming out of the Federal Department of Education. They take our dollars and they bring them to Washington, D.C., and they trickle them back with all these mandates. That has got to stop. I want to return control back to the state, to the local school boards, and ultimately to the parents.
I love your heart. I love your passion. I'm so glad that you could come and share this time with me and to be on CPAC now. It's not about us.
Yes.
Mary, you're just like, you really are a shining light.
Oh, thank you.
And your newness doesn't really show, because I can tell you've always been passionate about this, that you've learned a lot in your years as what you did before and what you did before, and you brought that forth, and now you're using it for the people of this country. So thank you so much for what you're doing, and thank you for what you did with the 20. And we're sort of out of time,
Okay.
but God bless you, and
thank you,
keep
Elaine.
doing what you're doing. You're doing the right thing, honey.
Thank you so
And
much.
for all of you, thank you for being here today. Thank you for allowing us to come into your lives and share these wonderful stories like Mary Miller had to tell us today. God bless you all, and we'll see you on CPAC Now next week.